Cool. So this is the first in a series of videos on something I'm super passionate about, which is early stage product management. So this is really how to manage products when you haven't found market fit. You may have no idea what you're selling. You've had a good idea. You've started to build it, or maybe you've started to think about building it. But really, it's untested. And how do you kind of build products, and how do you rapidly execute in that environment? So the reason for this series is that there isn't actually that much content out there on this. There's a lot of stuff at kind of scale up stage around measurements and R frameworks and all the rest of it. But a lot of that stuff doesn't actually translate down when you haven't even got your first customer yet, or you've got 5 users and they all do completely different things. So I thought I'd throw together these quick tips just as a taster, and then I'll drill into these themes in this series. So I guess the first question really is, what do I mean by product management without product market fit? Primarily, I'm aiming this at product owners. You might be a founder, you might be a CEO, you might have a product job like me, and you're working in a company that doesn't have a well-defined offering. So you can't give it to a sales team to cookie cut sell. Everyone you're selling to maybe wants to use it differently. Your users all have different demands. It kind of works for some things, it kind of works for others, and it doesn't. And you're trying to find out where's my edge, where's my niche, where's my market, what are people really getting out of it? And I think it's really worth stressing at this point and at this stage that I view the job of a product owner, whoever that is, your job is to find market fit. So your job is to guide and shepherd the tech team, the sales team, the company down the route that will turn you into a, hopefully a unicorn, but at least a profitable company with users who retain. So I'm going to run through some quick tips. I'm going to talk through them. I'm going to say why they're important. There's obviously many more, and I'll drill into them in more detail in a later series. So the first tip is super important, but probably the biggest mistake that I see most people making, and probably why most early stage companies fail, is that people do not talk to other people early enough. So you have a good idea, you've worked in a job, say, or you've seen an opportunity and you start building, and you go away and build that thing, and you go into dark mode for 3 months or a year or 3 years, and then you come out and show it to the world and no one cares. And there's a reason for that, and the reason is you haven't talked to anyone along that journey. So the best thing you can do is talk often, little and often, long and often, show what you're doing to as many people, show a presentation, show a PowerPoint, mock-up designs in Figma, wireframe it. All of this you can take to your sales team, you can take to your mum, you can take to potential users, and then hopefully they'll give you feedback that you can then fold in. If you then have a prototype, get that prototype out and used as quickly as possible, and then jump on calls. That's not just the job of your customer support or your sales team or support engineers. As a product owner, that's the best way for you to get insight into what you should be building, what you should be road mapping, what you should be designing, is to listen to the customer and listen to your sales team and find out what those pain points are. Or listen to your user, depending on if you're B2C or B2B. So don't build in a vacuum. And if I were to bet on why, like I said, most startups fail, I would say this is it. Strongly coupled to this is don't rely on measurement. So you think, okay, I don't have to talk to people, I can measure it. We've got Mixpanel, we've got whatever, AppQs, whatever. We're measuring, we're looking at user feedback, we're doing NPS scores, aren't we great? Unfortunately, measurement doesn't really work at this stage. And the reason it doesn't work is just because measurement requires the law of large numbers. And if you've got 5 users who are doing slightly different things, there may be trends, but they may not be representative of anything. And they certainly won't be representative of the market that you're trying to get to. Because you might have sold 5 users in one space doing one thing, but that may not be enough. That market sizing may not be enough. So until you've made that step from 0 to 1, you can't really measure in that way. That's not to say you shouldn't, but it's unreliable and it's hard to define sensible metrics. So, for example, you can look at, say, I want to increase user count, or say users on the platform. That's a great metric. What should that go from for what, right? So say I'm selling a B2B product into a business. Each business is 5 users. One additional client adds 5 users. Great. But these things become stochastic. So say you're at 5 users. Should you be aiming for 50? Should you be aiming for 100? It's really hard to know. So you can't really target it in the same way that you would at scale. But what you can do, obviously, is say, okay, we need to get 10 logos or 50 users or whatever, and track and build on that. Strongly coupled to this, actually, is how I like to do measurement at really early stage, is just to set achievable goals. And that what that means really is taking down what you'd see as like a big overall strategic result that the company wants to achieve, like 1 million ARR, right? And to get 1 million ARR, we need 200 users, users at however many amount a month. Okay, well, I currently have 0 paid users and 5 trials, and no one's coming back to the site. So how am I going to get to that Series A money? Well, break it down, right? Think about, how do I get to 1 user, right? How do I get 1 person to just keep coming back to my platform? Because if I can prove that, I've proved value. I've proved there's something there. Okay, then how do I get someone to convert? How do I get them to pay? Because then I've put a price on the amount of value. You'd probably be priced too cheap if they're returning, or if they're churning, probably be priced too expensive. We've gone through both sides in our journey. And then finally, how do I get them to renew? Right? Because it's very easy to sell once to someone. It's very hard to sell twice, because they've used it, they've built it into their workflow, and that's that stickiness you're driving after. And each one of those is like a really, really simple, achievable goal that you can kind of set out for yourself. Okay, I've built my prototype. I'm talking to people, right? So you've got people to go talk to. Can I get them to come back and use it? Yes, great. Let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that with everyone, because that's a huge milestone, right? Can I get them to pay, right? If I'm paying, then I know I've got a business here. Again, celebrate it. And then finally, can I get them to, when's my first renewal? And then once you've done that, you can start scaling those. Okay, we've sold to 1, let's sell to 5, right? I've launched a new feature. Can I get people to use it? Can I get people to pay for it? We go through the same loop over and over again. And it's sick. It's a really, really nice feeling, because then you get these milestones and you feel like you're winning. And then the company feels like it's winning, right? And your job, I think, as a part of your job as a product owner, is to really celebrate and really be the hype man for the company. You should really care about the product that you're building being really cool and really exciting, and everything that the users want, right? At least that should be your aim. And the bit I've added on here, which is really easy to forget to do when you're in a kind of high stress environment like a startup with Runway, is to celebrate, right? Because these wins aren't just your wins as product or design or strategy. Everyone's involved. The devs who built it, right? Or the manufacturers who built it. Your CX team is getting the feedback in for you and keeping that flywheel running. All of those people are kind of integral to the company winning and these product goals. So make sure that everyone celebrates, everyone knows what's going on, everyone knows and feels like you're winning. The 4th tip is kind of related to the other ones, and one that if you're not from a technology background, you'll probably massively understate, and it's probably quite easy for people to pull the wool over your eyes. But velocity, and really what I mean is development velocity or product velocity. So how quickly can you get changes into your product is everything at this stage. It lets you pivot. It lets you get customer feedback rapidly into the system, which builds engagement, it builds trust, makes it easier to sell, makes it easier to retain. It lets you course correct. It just makes everything in life easier. And if, like me, you don't really come from a hard development background, you'll probably massively underestimate the kind of importance of ops hygiene. So release cycles, Bitbucket pipelines, code hygiene, code cleanliness, how easy it is for developers to switch in and out, all that good stuff. So part of your job as a product owner at this stage really should just be to focus on holding your tech team to account on this. Okay, if I want to make a change to a dashboard, how long is that going to take? 3 weeks. Why is that 3 weeks? Right, I only want to change one graph. Can we get that down? Hold them to account on how they're writing code, on how malleable that code can be. And it's worth noting that I don't mean writing custom code. What I mean is writing code in a way that it can be updated and changed easily, because you should be solving once and for everything, right? You should be solving general problems. But really, what's really, really important is that you can iterate quickly, because otherwise you just can't get the feedback you need into the system. And if you're in a VC-backed company, you're going to be burning through runway, and you won't be able to make the changes fast enough to kind of spark the engine and kind of get the rocket fuel going. So really, really important, and I think one that most product owners don't think about until it becomes a real, real problem. The final one is really, really more of a kind of like a hold yourself to account. So when you're designing, when you're adding features, when you're road mapping, don't build toys. Don't build things because they're fun. Don't build things because they're cool. Build things because they're super useful and your users want them, and you've heard the users want them, and focus on that. That for me is like the prime directive of good product management. It could be a cool feature, but it could be even cooler if it gets you 100 more users, right? A key example of this at the minute is the amount of people banging in large language models into their products. Nobody cares, right? Nobody cares unless it does something super useful, unless it, like, I don't know, like ChatGPT can trace a document down for me to a couple of hundred words, or give me some blog post titles or something. That's core value. That's useful. But just don't add a chatbot with that in it for the sake of it, just because large language models are cool. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. And then you'll sit there scratching your head wondering why no one can use it. And so that's the kind of prime directive and thread that runs through it, is be hyper focused on what you're building and listen super carefully to your users, and then that will keep you on the straight and narrow. You can then build the cool stuff, you can build the cool shit, but you'll know it's focused, and you'll know that, like, it'll be directed to the outcome you want. So that's quite a lot, and it's quite overwhelming, and I get that. It was quite overwhelming for me as a journey, if I'm really honestly with you. And I'm not going to lie, like, early stage companies are brutal environments to work with if you're not used to it. And I don't think there's enough conversation around how hard they are. You get very little positive feedback. In fact, when building products at this stage, you get next to none. Most of it is incredibly useful, but largely negative or criticism or constructive, but no one's telling you a feature is great. They're telling you how to improve it, which is gold dust if people are coming to do that, because it means you've got engaged customers. But it means that you have to be quite mentally resilient to not be like, well, I just spent 3 months working on this and we did this massive launch and now everyone's complaining. But they're using it, so celebrate that, right? It's super important to set achievable goals. I mean, I banged on about this earlier, but that's how you ensure not only that communicating to the company that you're winning, but to yourself, that you're making steps forward. I built this, or we built this, or I did this thing where I added 100 users, or 50k in ARR, or however you want to think about it. But like, I designed this feature, it's led to 3 sales. That's a huge win, right? Celebrate that and hold on to that, because that will keep you going. The final thing that I am fanatical about actually is you need to learn aggressively at this stage. And what I mean by that is that you will need to be a generalist. It helps if you have one core strength, whether that be design or data or whatever, and not really like product management frameworks, if I'm honest, but like one technical area, because you'll have to wear many hats, as everyone at this stage does. But you need to learn enough about everything to be dangerous. You need to learn how to sell, so you know that the salespeople aren't taking the piss or selling badly to inflate their bonuses, which happens a lot. You need to understand technology, so you can understand and empathize with engineers when they're telling you the limits and limitations of the tech stack and what they can and can't do, and also know enough to challenge them, right? To say, well, that's all well and good, but we shouldn't be doing that. These other companies are doing it differently. You need to know design. I mean, Figma is a great tool. You can get up and running in about an hour, and you can copy and paste screenshots around, and that's enough. But again, the visual way of representing things is so much easier to communicate than just text, and so much less is kind of lost in translation. And those kind of optimizations will massively help your velocity, because you won't have to have so many meetings and conversations explaining what a product feature is supposed to do if you can draw it. And then learn about, as you scale, management frameworks, how to communicate with people, ops frameworks, road mapping, all of that. So this should be part of your kind of core journey as someone at this stage, because you're going to want to grow with the business, right? If the business is successful, you're going to want to go from maybe a smaller role, if you're not a founder, into a much larger role, where you will have to be more cross-functional. You will have to be more kind of broad in your level of understanding. So the long and short of it is that it's a really, really cool place to work, thing to do. Not many jobs let you build stuff and create from zero, from nothing, and then go out into the world. And that, when you get people using your product, that's probably the coolest feeling you're going to get. We designed this, we built this, and now we've got 100 people every day logging in and using it and loving it. So that's a great feeling. And I hope that there was bits and pieces in this that you can take away and think on and think, yeah, I could do that, or I haven't been doing enough of that. I haven't been talking to people enough, right? I haven't thought about delivery at all. I haven't thought about how we can actually get features out into the product faster. So in summary, I'm Rob. This is Productive Teardowns. This is like the first in a series on early stage product management. Please like, comment, subscribe. Any feedback, anything you'd like me to do better, let me know.